space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the U.S.S. Adequate, our ongoing mission until we are cancelled and replaced by something far better, to review every Star Trek episode and movie in existence, to seek out new guests and make them very uncomfortable, to boldly go where many other YouTube series have gone before. My word, good evening everybody, and welcome to another episode of Trekking Up North. I am your host, Captain Goodwill, and joining me as ever, because we have pulled him back from the Mirror Universe, where Mirror Universe Synoiz was last week. We have pulled him back. We have gone through the Ion Storm, and we have pulled him back. It's Science Officer Synoiz, looking splendiferous in his velour shirt. Good evening, Synoiz.
Why did you bring me back? Everyone over there was definite up for it. Gagging for it, they were. Lovely.
But I love how you managed to do that very professionally, considering that we've now got this kind of game of chicken from when you say you're playing the intro of how absurd we can be until we actually go live. And then you can just go flick serious, and I'm just still pissing myself at like... Yeah, you didn't see this, but literally before the thing, I was trying to do an operatic vocal of Memory from Cats, but about sausages.
Sausages!
And then Goodwill's like,
Sausages!
And Goodwill's like, space.
I am a consummate professional. However, thespian.
Thespian, is that what they call it these days? Yeah,
where is Christopher wants to know where is Goth Synoiz? He's back in the Mirror Universe, getting all the nookie he could handle.
All that nookie.
The mascara is running.
The universe where everyone is bisexual. Thank you, DS9. The facts, it's canon.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, actually, to be fair, after this episode, I was thinking about doing the goth thing again because I quite like it. But yeah, after this episode, I was like, no, because I might actually cry like talking about this episode because of how amazingly wonderful and like hard hitting it was. And I was just like, A, it's warm, and B, I don't want to cry on a podcast. So let's not.
We'll all cry but we've all cried on a podcast. It's part of
Yeah, but this time it won't be when wanking. So
yes, Miles.
Miles.
Anyway, how are you, Synoiz?
I'm good. I'm in a depressing bit at the minute though, which is basically like where you just like someone's like, oh, we should hang out, and I'm like, cool, I'm free in 3 weeks.
Oh.
You know, and it's just like, oh, that's really sucky when you have to do that. But no, it's good. We have SunnyCon this weekend.
We do.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. I'm going to be there on the Saturday with Baron LeVay. Probably, you know, as a boy being their photographer, so say hi if you're there on the Saturday as well. And then on the Sunday, fingers crossed, provided it's not too wham, I will be there as the Velvet Snatch, and we're doing our panel.
Oh my god!
I've only got like 4 on my list of favorite cartoons. I'm kind of struggling. We're talking about our favorite cartoons, and I'm just like, I don't know. Like, you know, it's a weird thing, isn't it? Like,
you've only got 4.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I have 13.
Yeah, you know this thing where I'm just like, maybe I shouldn't be on this panel. You know, it's like, but then again, I can talk about one subject for a very long time.
Good.
Miles.
Yes.
How are you doing? Have you had a lovely week?
No.
Going anywhere nice? I like what you've done with your hair. It's proper posh.
Oh, thank you. It's called washed.
Yeah, I don't understand that. Yeah.
Alpecin stops it falling out. Right. No, my week has been long, arduous. However, for the first time in 7 months, I have a week off, and I'm looking forward to it. Yes, I am also at SunnyCon Anime Expo at St James's Park at Newcastle upon Tyne on Sunday. I can't wait. Yes, me, Synoiz, and the rest of the Nerdy Up North team will be main stage panellists at SunnyCon Anime Expo at St James's Park in Newcastle at 2 p.m. on the afternoon. So if you want to come and see us brick it live on stage, that's where we will be. Because, guys, there's about 600 people going to be there, and I'm just like, So, yes, but I'm very, very much looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting together with our nerdy family once more onto the breach, dear degenerates.
Yeah.
But no, I've got a week off for the first time in 7 months, so I'm going to make the best of it. I'm going to sleep. I will be cosplaying as Voyager Hawaiian Tom Paris, because SunnyCon at St James's Park, much like my 2023 calendar, is hot. And anything other than a Hawaiian shirt, I may turn into dust as a ginger. So if you see a very bright Hawaiian shirt, a tricorder and a con badge, it is me! I will be recording live videos and other videos to put on our YouTube channel throughout the week. So please come and say hi. If you lick me...
You win a prize.
If you lick me, I will hurt you. No, you will be put in the brig. All right, with Donna. So, other than that, who have we got in the chat tonight? Well, we've got the usual mainstays. Hello, Beth. Michael is getting pissed for the whole week. No, drunk, not pissed. We've got Christopher. Hi, Christopher. We've got the Legend of Lan. All the Discord favourites are here. We've got Paul as well. Hi, Paul. We're going to be nerding it up. No, you will not get £10 if you lick Goodwill, Paul. Stop incentivising the patrons, the visitors. Please. I beg of you. Not in the age of Cosy Lives. Please stop giving money to lick me. Adam, what happens if I lick you? Adam, you are 8 foot tall. You would have to bend down a lot to try and lick me, and I'm going to use that to my advantage.
Can we just pretend he wasn't talking about you there? And I've got an answer for you, Adam.
Oh my.
9 foot tall beast.
9 foot. I've heard he's 9.5 foot. And he's also tall.
I wasn't talking height.
Big penis. Anyway, so...
That's how you smoke cigarettes, isn't it?
Okay. £20 on the main stage. For God's sake, Paul, stop it. Stop it.
I'll do that on the main stage.
No!
£20, £20. I could spend that on £1 mix-ups.
£30 and I'll lick myself.
All of the fizzy sweets.
£30 and I will lick myself. Live on stage. Daddy's got fuel tonight.
Daddy's got it.
Daddy's got it.
I showed Goodwill a new emote thing that I put on my Twitch that I'll be using later. That maybe no one else will find funny, but it makes me laugh. So,
oh my god, yes, we're getting all the ha-has out now before we get to the wah-wahs of this
we'll get
episode.
The stupid stuff out, and then Mark will join and be like, "Oh, you were boring as shit this week," and I'm like, "Yes, we are."
Mark is here judging us. I can feel it in my water. But no, guys, we are here as ever to review. Oh my god, it's all gone wrong. Let's start again. Hello. We are here to review Star Trek Strange New Worlds Episode 2, Ad Astra per Aspera, to the stars through hardship. All I'm going to say before we do get into this, holy cow, this is Star Trek at its best. And I got a lot of Measure of a Man vibes from this episode, and not a Measure of a Man as you degenerates are thinking of. I'm thinking a Measure of a Man, the famous TNG episode relating to Data. Shall we? Oh no, what's Paul saying? Yes, we will have to have a Graeme lick Goodwill on stage. Can you please stop forcing staff? Stop forcing the staff.
Like just because we call you a cult leader, Paul, doesn't mean you have to be a creepy sex pest. I know it's literally like a thing, but you know, it's like that whole thing. Can we not just skip to the suicide? Can we not just?
Oh no, unalive. You can't say the S word.
Oh, can you not?
Unalive.
Oh, actually, Baron was telling me that on TikTok.
Yes.
And they were saying all this stuff on TikTok, and you're just going like, what? But people still know what it means. Like, surely that the whole point is not the word, it's the meaning. Oh well, anyway.
Well, it's either unalive or alivened.
Alivened.
Yeah.
I'm feeling alivened today. But
yes.
it's really, this episode is incredible. Like this episode is literally, and it seems weird that we talk about New Trek and we talk about like, you know, all this stuff of, oh, well, you know, it's not going to be as good as the old days. But I kind of put this up there with like, like you're saying, Measure of a Man, like, what's it called? Oh, in the pale moonlight, or
yes.
even what's it called, the To the Stars from DS9,
Yes.
the one where it's basically where he's a comic book artist, where he's a writer.
Oh, Far Beyond the Stars.
Far Beyond the Stars.
Yes.
It fits in with that, and this episode demonstrates the nuance and the joy of Trek, where it can comment upon real life events and real life bigotry, but through metaphor, where it's not going, hey, here's the exact problem that we have in our world, which seems a bit like quaint because they would have got past 90% of that stuff in the future. But it basically goes, hey, here's the entire same situation in a different context, but in a way that you can relate. And the reason why this is important is that when Trek talks about things like racism or homophobia or transphobia, it's not directly talking about those things in the episode, because the people who are homophobic, the people who are racist, are going to be watching it and be like, oh, I can't relate to this. Oh, this is virtue signaling bullshit kind of thing. But then when you watch it through Trek, you see the situation, you agree with the situation where you go, hey, that's not fair. Like this is, crap. And then obviously realize later, oh shit, this is the same as this situation that, and it's the wonderful thing about like Trek, where it manages to fight bigotry that way rather than giving them a lecture. They kind of just go, hey, isn't this situation a lot like this whole thing we've got going on currently in America or whatnot? And yeah, like this is one of these really punchy episodes where it's very emotional.
It's very relevant, and Star Trek is very clever to portray issues of its time, issues of the day, in a way where people can understand them. It translates problems that we are facing in a way that people understand, and that people can it puts them in a context where everyone can. It's really hard to explain.
Well, I think
they have done.
Christopher's.
Sorry, go on.
Well, Christopher's pointed out very good in the chat where he said you've got to trick the bigots into
Yes.
being decent,
It is,
it's
yes.
very true. Like it's this because the problem is, like, I had it with like coming out as gay and stuff. All of the people I knew that I grew up with who were bigoted and were like, oh, fucking gays and stuff like that, they're like very homophobic. Like the way to fight against that was just being me, and just like them realizing, oh, and being in that situation and being like, oh, I have to question this belief that I have because I didn't realize, I hadn't thought about it in that kind of context. And that's how this works.
Nichelle Nichols famously said that when she was discussing some episodes of the original series with Gene Roddenberry, it was the issues of, hey, we know you're trying to get this message across to people, but we are not sure if the people are going to understand it, and they will struggle with what you are trying to put across in regards to certain episodes with bigotry, racism, and the like, and rights. And Gene famously turned around and said, they might not get it, but the kids will. And I think that is very poignant, that Star Trek, when seen through a child's eye, does help children. I mean, it helped me, and it helped a lot of people who are my age, who grew up with, the original series and the Next Generation stuff. Help them understand that these issues, it helped them understand that there is racism, there is bigotry, there is discrimination and persecution of all kinds, but humanity can rise above it and tackle these challenges head on. And it's the fact that, yes, it was geared to send everyone the message, but the people who would understand it the most would be the next generation, the younger generation, the people who would embody the very values that Gene Roddenberry and the like wanted to embody into these people to build this utopia. And they mention this a lot through the episode, where, especially when they say that the Federation was built on a utopia, and in building this utopia became prejudicial of people who they didn't want in that utopia.
Well, we get to see a great bit of the dark side of the Federation, and obviously we do get hints of the dark side of the Federation. Obviously in Picard it's very pronounced and it's a bit clunky in season 1 and stuff, but it's the idea of like they're not. It's not a utopia. Like, in the capacity of they got really burned. Like, so obviously, what's it called with the drug war where they have it happens before it happens between Enterprise and the original series, but where it's like the oh, where it's Q references it in Escape from Farpoint, where
Oh,
basically
that
they
was
had
World War Three.
was it World War Three? Yeah,
Yes.
that happens before Enterprise, doesn't it?
Yes, it happened in the between the 2040s and the 2050s, where they controlled soldiers through the use of narcotics, which also it references how Germany controlled their soldiers in the Great War using ecstasy and the like, through as they call it, Panzer chocolate. But
It wasn't called Panzer chocolate, was it?
no, but it's how it's
I
how
love
it's
the idea. Oh, I can't get enough of this Panzer.
but
It tastes a little bit
it's
like
how they controlled their soldiers through putting drugs in their food, ecstasy and the like, and they, Q reference. I mean, it wasn't mentioned a lot after that, if at all, but Q references.
But it exists.
Yeah,
it exists in the universe,
Yes.
and obviously that's one big establishing event, like for humanity, where it's like, oh, let's never do that again. That kind of brought us together.
Yes.
But the other event is the eugenics war, which is obviously began by Khan Noonien Singh, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. There's a lot of
I'm
issues.
getting Goodwill to talk about this because this is like preamble to what the episode's talking about.
So for those that don't know, the eugenics wars, it's taken on different scenarios throughout canon, because obviously Star Trek was made in the 60s, and for them the 1990s was the distant future. We were in the midst of the space race in the 60s, and they were like, oh, we will have colonies on the moon by the 80s and we'll be doing this. So for them to say, well, the eugenics wars were in the 1990s, and it was basically what happened was the rise of genetic manipulation and genetic modification, eugenics, which was spurred on by the Germans, or that party in the 40s, in the 30s and 40s, sort of propagated and got advanced to a point where in the 90s, or in whatever time you want to consider it now, the genetic engineering was rife, and it bred a army of super soldiers, highly intellectual, very strong, very intelligent people.
Who looked a lot like underwear models.
Very beautiful people as well, because obviously,
with a lot of mullets.
Of the purest race. But it was blonde hair, blue eye. But it was basically they bred these people to, they were bred to control. They were bred to control the population. It run amok, and it ended up where these people controlled a quarter of the planet, a quarter of Earth. So in the original series, we see the rise of Khan Noonien Singh, who ended up controlling a large swath of Asia until we rose up against them, and they left on a secret spaceship, a 1990s rocket, shall we say, never to be seen again. Like, everything was classified, they disappeared. Throughout, it's been a bit of a nightmare for Trek, because obviously the 90s have come and gone, so they've been saying, well, this was a Cold War, but this was a very, very cold war. This happened this happened behind the scenes, and this was like, these are the secret cabal, the secret, you hear, like in conspiracy theories, there is a secret order, there is the Illuminati that controls, and they're trying to say that these augments, as they call them, are that Illuminati. They control large swathes of the world, and everyone's rose up against them, so they escaped. So Khan and that lot escaped, but from the ashes of the eugenics war, where apparently 30-odd million people died, Earth banned genetic modification, manipulation of any kind. Any embryos that were modified were taken away, hidden, stored. There's a great arc in season 4 of Enterprise where they go into this, and it also leans into Klingons as well, quite surprisingly. Like, how did the Klingons get the smooth ridges? Well, watch Star Trek Enterprise to find out, because they tie it in quite nicely. So it was a great...
It's that idea, though, of like that it doesn't just capture humanity. It's not just humanity saying, hey, genetic modification is bad for us. It's the fact that they apply it to everyone. They apply it to everyone in the Federation, so that they won't deal with, because of that fear, because of how dangerous, like, the augments were to humanity, and because of this thing, it basically... you can't join Starfleet if you are, or if your race is, or if you're associated practically with genetically modified people, or no matter what race you are. And it's kind of like if you banned German people from having jobs or something nowadays because of what happened in World War II, and it's kind of kept there where they're just going, oh, we're just being safe, we're just just making sure. And then we have all these people where, like, we have the character of Lan, the security officer in Strange New Worlds, who is a descendant of Khan Noonien Singh,
Yes.
who isn't augmented directly herself, but she still lives in this sort of like, with this prejudice over herself and this kind of self-hatred because of what she is, because it's been battered into her so much since she was a child. Oh, you're augmented, you are from this horrible monster. And they, and this episode is very much about dealing with your heritage, dealing with your past and your race, and like, and the unconscious or conscious bias from other people based upon what box you fall in rather than who you are as an actual person.
Christopher asks, what about Data? Data is an android, so he doesn't fall under the category of genetically modified, because he is an artificial being. So
but people are still terrified of him.
They are still terrified. Yes, there
and
is
that's
that.
That's how we get the episode Measure of a Man in Next Generation, where basically Starfleet are going, hey, we need to know more about Data, so we just kind of need to take him apart, and then we can make more Datas, and we can work out how to lessen this potential threat from it. Because obviously it happens in response to lore existing.
Yes.
Where, because I think they kind of accept Data, and they're like, oh, Data's cool, he's passive, oh, it's totally fine, he doesn't break any laws, let's just keep him around. And then when lore appears, and they're like, oh, androids are really dangerous if they are psychopaths. So, and then that same bias against, like, oh, because lore was dangerous, then maybe Data is. We need to classify Data, and we need to control Data more, which is what Measure of a Man goes into.
But it's also it's also good to know that obviously I won't spoil it, because a lot of our viewers, and I'm quite honoured that they are watching Star Trek because of us. They are watching The Next Generation. So all I'm saying is,
there are other things you can watch, not for us, but it is the best thing in the world.
All I am saying is, oh, hello, Rebecca. Love the sum up on unconscious bias. Yes, thank you very much, Becca. Yeah. We will see you Sunday at Sonicon.
Morgan.
Yes.
That's how we say the name.
All I will say is, in regards to Data and the prejudice in regards to artificial life, watch Picard. And you will see what happens because of that. But very much with the augments, it was like, this is not allowed, not at all. And I mean, this continues all the way through Deep Space Nine, as we see with Julian Bashir as well.
Yeah.
It continues. And it's sort of like, this is bad. This is what happened to us. We don't want this to happen on a galactic scale, because superior, Khan's phrase, isn't it? Superior. I'm going to have to Google it. It's.
But I think the thing about it, though, is that this parallels real life a lot, because we have it where, because there's a potential threat, we're willing to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're willing to be like, oh, well, because something bad might happen, we should just ban this entirely. And then realizing that that's like irrational, that irrational fear that, like, and obviously there's a lot of parallels you can make to real life now. Like, obviously no one really thinks this way, but like, the bathroom thing with trans people where they're like, oh, trans people going into women's bathrooms are gonna molest everyone, and you're like going, what? Like that might have happened like once or twice. Is that a reason to ban it in the whole world, kind of thing?
Yes.
And in the same capacity, it's like, I'm pretty sure the people that would do that would do it regardless of laws.
Yeah.
It's that horrible thing. But it's the fact of it's, that kind of, oh well, because there's a threat there, we'll just ban this totally. And that's exactly what this is. It goes, hey, we had Carnoonian Sing, we had the augments in the past, therefore we'll just ban it outright. And the problem is that, like, the Federation, their whole claim is that they're accepting. Their whole claim is to go out and find new worlds, welcome alien races into the Federation, and basically be sort of like, let's all work together. And then it's nuts that they, throughout all of Trek, like even going up to DS9, they still have this hard rule of going, nope. Like literally, nope, fuck you. If you're augmented, fuck you. It doesn't matter how well you've done, how good you are, what your actual record is, fuck off. And it's kind of nuts that there's this sort of like seed of sort of horribleness in the center of the Federation.
It highlights the fact that Starfleet, and in fact that the United Federation of Planets, is not a perfect utopian society as people believe it to be. That, as with everything, there are dark sides, there are controversial sides. Oh, thank you for donating £1.49 for a unicorn, Peaches. I don't get the reason for £1.49, but okay. Must
Delicious.
Be a sticker. Delicious.
My
But yeah,
delicious unicorn.
it's
I will taste its rump.
yeah. Oh my. But it's sort of. These episodes sort of, I mean, DS9 did it quite a lot with Starfleet, that there is a grey side, there is a dark side to the United Federation of Planets, and this goes to emphasise that yes, this utopia does have its downsides, it does have its prejudices and persecutions. But let's get into the episode itself, because the episode opens with a young Una.
Well, just as context, this episode basically at the end of the first season of Strange New Worlds, we found out that, well, we knew, but basically the first officer, Una, is an augment. She's from a race called the Illyrians, who basically are augmented. Like, their culture is that they augment themselves. They kind of keep tinkering around with their DNA to make themselves like better. But because it's there in their society, even if they don't agree with it, they're still augmented. And so even the ones where, even the people where they've, got away from it or they can't really help it, they're still blacklisted and they're still treated as outsiders. So she applied to Starfleet and lied on her application. So even though she's been in Starfleet for 25 years and like has all these commendations and stuff, they found out because she had to reveal herself to have these, supernatural powers in order to save the whole crew of the Enterprise in season 1. And then Starfleet immediately goes, arrested, and she's on trial. And so in the last episode, the first episode of season 1, we have it where Captain Pike goes off on a mission to basically get the best lawyer in space, like the best lawyer that they can possibly do for a civil rights case of this nature, who is also an Illyrian, and convince them to fight Una's case. And that's where this starts off, basically.
Yes, because the episode starts where we see a flashback scene of a young Una who is sat in bed with a broken leg, and the parents are refusing to take her to a doctor, because if they take her to a doctor they will find out who she is, they will lose everything, because Illyrians cannot, I mean they will get into it, but there is a reason why the Illyrians why they cannot go to a normal doctor, because this is a simple, even by today's standards, a broken leg is something simple that can be fixed, it can be aligned, it can be patched up. They refuse to, because as they say, we will lose everything. And we see that this young Una is glowing, and then the parents go, we'll find another way, she's going to be okay. Back to present day, we see Una and her attorney talking to Captain Patel, where Patel offers him a bargain. So plead guilty, you will be dishonourably dismissed from Starfleet, there will be no jail time, no exile, you will be a free Federation citizen, and we will seal your records. Una says that this is just Starfleet looking the other way.
Yeah. It's literally the idea of going, they don't want this horrible case to go to court, because the whole thing is basically them going, yeah, cool. We've been singing her praises for years. She's really well respected, but actually we're going to put her in jail because she's different. And, and it's the idea of they're very much going, hey, if you'll just not do that, then we'll just let you off scot-free. But you're not allowed to be in Starfleet, even though it's your dream. And and
but even a lawyer,
she just kind of... Well, the problem is, though, it points out how corrupt this situation is, where her lawyer's like, oh, it's a good deal, you should take it. And then Una points out, like, how can I trust his counsel when he works for you?
Yeah, when he works for you. And it's like, that's just like... It's like the DA in America sending a DA, and it's just like, that what? Like, how does that work? But then we go back to the Volterra Nebula, where Pike has gone to find this lawyer, and he's going to this office, he can't breathe, Stardate 2393.8.
I have to say, I thought this was a bit crap, the special effects, because basically it's got Pike walking down like this street, and he's got a gas mask on, and he's like struggling to breathe and stuff, and no one else does, but no one looks like an alien. It's just human people. And I just love the idea that it just got a random street and went like, okay.
Well, those are all Illyrians.
Just walk down this with like a...
Those are all Illyrians, because my theory is because when the Illyrians were first seen in Star Trek Enterprise, they were different. They looked like a humanoid species that is non-human. The theory is that obviously they genetically engineered themselves to look like human beings, to make themselves no longer look like a natural Illyrian. So if they are genetically augmented at birth, then they are born looking like humans. So yes, he's walking through these streets and he's struggling to breathe because this atmosphere is toxic to humans. However, because they are Illyrians, a simple modification means that they can breathe in the air of this planet.
Which kind of points out like how it's not all bad. Like how the Illyrians, how genetic modification can actually help you in your life. And it means that they've been able to colonize this whole other planet. And you're just going, well, no.
In other cases where they won't be able to. Yeah, exactly. So, like, if this was, if they didn't have genetic manipulation, they would not have been able to colonize this planet. So they would have had to have found somewhere else, which would have been a drain. It's very clever that they're like, oh, well, this has got this much of nitrogen content. Oh, a simple modification will allow us to breathe that. We can thrive on here. I mean, it's even referenced when they go into the office after he's sort of held himself hostage by draining his oxygen, where he's just like, I'll wait until I see it. I'll wait. And then
I think I love it. It has the secretary on the like phone to the lawyer, basically going, yeah, he's still here. He won't go. He won't leave. And then, and then she tries to get rid of him again. And Pike's just like, no, I'm going to stay until she's ready to see me. And then his oxygen starts running out. And he starts like struggling to breathe, and the woman's like, "Go, go, you go, you can't die here, practically." And then obviously, they, what's the word? Is it chicken or calls her bluff effectively? Yes. And then she panics. She calls the lawyer. The lawyer comes in. They turn the oxygen on so that he can breathe again, and then she's like, well done, you got to see me.
But she still refuses.
Done, you got a meeting with me by nearly killing yourself.
But she still refuses. She still refuses the case. She knows exactly what's going on with Una. We don't know why she knows. We don't know the history between her and Una. She refuses the case. Pike's gone all this way, and basically she said, it's a wasted journey for you. Oh, hello, Dustin. Good night. Welcome to the chat.
Hey, Dustin.
I think you're a first-time viewer. Hello. But yeah,
Dustin, good night.
Dustin.
I quite like that's a metal name.
It is. It's really good. That's a fantastic name, Mr. Is it Sir Goodnight? Oh, Sir Goodnight. Sir Goodnight. But yes,
is that you saying goodbye to Sir? Is that you saying good night, Sir?
Yeah. But Nera refuses this case. She refuses to take him on. There's obviously, even at this scene, there is obviously some sort of displeasure at the thought of Starfleet and the Federation, because she even says, even this atmosphere, I thought this would have been a good place to be away from you,
Yeah.
people, because it's inhospitable to you. And Pike being Pike, ever the Boy Scout, he's like, 10 cases have been thrown out or overturned due to insufficient evidence. And he's convincing her to take this case because he's like, if you get her out on a technicality, if you get her out of this case, those other cases that were thrown out or dismissed can then be reevaluated. They can be reinvestigated.
Well, this is the wonderful thing about law. I don't know if it's wonderful. It's a bit weird, but it's the idea of like, if you can just make headway in one situation, then you can basically reevaluate everything else, or you can use that as a reference. So if you can basically go, hey, we've proved in this case that this is the case, then you can look at other ones and reference that one and be like, hey, well, it was fine there. So, and it kind of snowballs from there. So obviously Pike's going, if you win this one, it will be really useful for all of your other stuff. But she definitely has a massive chip on her shoulder about the Federation.
And Una.
And Una. We don't fully go into it in the episode, but I think it's basically just the idea of the Starfleet are seen by her as,
prejudicial,
racist.
I would say.
Yeah, prejudicial, racist, as in they literally just go, hey, blanket ban on your whole race, you can't be in the Federation. And it's like, why? Oh, because of what you are. And like, right, okay. You let the Klingons join. Not at this point, but like.
Welcome to the chat spectrum. I believe that's my good old buddy Joe. Welcome for good. Oh, finally, he made it. Yes, he made it. It's fairly early in good old.
Wow,
United...
Dustin Goodnight is saying that's his real name.
Wow,
that's an amazing name.
that is a handsome.
You need to become a rocker. You need to become like a front man or something with a name like that. That's amazing.
Or some sort of author, because that is a rear book cover with a very tight black T-shirt pose. That's a
that's it.
Yes.
Oh man, welcome. I'm Dustin Goodnight. Welcome to my dark place.
Yeah. Oh my.
Hey Joe.
Hey Joe.
Sanctorum.
Yeah. Mark's probably lurking, going, "Oh my god!" But so Neera
scared to show his face.
Yeah. So Neera travels to San Francisco, visits Una. Now the tension between these two, they haven't seen each other for 25 years. We don't know what's happened, and Neera's just like, "Hey, yeah." Cut to the short and curlies. What has happened? Brief me. Una briefs her. And basically just says, well, why don't you just plead guilty, take the deal, and just walk away? Una quite rightly says, I shouldn't have to hide anymore. Why should I walk away and hide? I shouldn't have to feel like that anymore. Why should I hide from everyone who I am? Convinces Neera. And Neera goes to the council and says that the deal is rejected. And she's doing it for all the Illyrians who don't just run away to Starfleet. She's doing it for all Illyrians.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's the fact of, it's the principle of it. It's the idea of, yes, you could just walk away from it and burn everything that she's put in. But it's mainly the idea of just going, no, this needs to be dealt with. Like, you wonder if there's also an element of she doesn't realize how uphill this struggle is, but and the lawyer very much understands it. But Dustin's pointed out a very good bit later on the episode. We'll get to that. We'll get to that scene, Dustin.
Yeah, we will get. If you're a first time viewer, guys, me and Science Officer Synoiz on the U.S.S. Adequate, as everyone may know, it's held together with duct tape and hope at the moment. It's we do scene by scene analysis of each episode, so we get into it. We get into the real nitty gritty of it. So pull up, have some biscuits, have a good old tea. If you're British, have a good old tea. We need biscuits. Have we got biscuits? I don't have biscuits. I want biscuits now.
Where are the biscuits? Okay.
But
I just spat on myself there.
Oh dear. Oh, the fluids are everywhere.
How professional. But no, it's such a good episode. I absolutely love this one. So yeah.
But back on the Enterprise, Patel is pissed. Goes straight to Pike and says that they have rejected the deal. And Pike quite rightly says, the law is wrong. The law is wrong. Una should be on his
points
bridge.
Out something. It points out something very important, which is basically where she's saying, "Hey, she's breaking the law," and Pike just says, "And what if the law is wrong?"
Yes.
Which
Oh,
is something that is very, very relevant to like today. You know, like for instance, the fact that in the UK, Parliament keep trying to push the anti-protest bill.
Oh,
like
God,
it's the idea where they literally go like, "Oh, okay," you know, like, and this is terrifying that the Tories are trying to do this. And obviously, you've got, you know, red Tories helping them, but it's the idea of like going, hey, we can do that retroactively, so we put this bill in, and then if you've ever been part of a protest or if you've ever been arrested for sort of like disturbing the peace, we can just pull that up and arrest you. And you're like going, that's terrifying and draconian and horrible. And then, but the problem is it will be law because idiots in charge said it would be. And the importance of basically understanding when law is wrong. Like when we go, yeah, just because we're saying it's a law doesn't mean we can't change it, doesn't mean that we shouldn't question it and go, is that still relevant now?
Yeah,
or was it put in by idiots in the first place?
For those non-British people, fuck the Tories.
Fuck the Tories. Don't fuck the Tories. They'll enjoy it. Just burn them.
Yes, they've read 1984 and V for Vendetta and went, some of those ideas aren't bad.
What a great idea!
Yes. So yes, they are fulfilling Thatcher's dream, and we are all loving it. So yeah, Patel is absolutely pissed, and because Una and Council has rejected the deal, the JAG is going to get involved. The JAG being Judge Advocate General, if anyone's not a fan of JAG. Hi. Yes, I watch a lot.
I've never heard that before. I thought you meant Mick Jagger, and I was like, is he in
JAG? Judge Advocate General. Have you never seen NCIS? Good God, what have you done with your life? What? Do you not have a spare 25 years to watch that?
I'm saving that up for SG1.
Oh God, yeah. So Patel basically says to Pike that they should have taken the deal, and because they haven't taken the deal, we go back to San Francisco, and then we see what I am going to who I am going to address going forward as Pasak the Patak. That's who I'm going to address it. This is Vulcan Karen.
Yeah.
Vulcan Karen, Pasak the Patak, joins the case. This is Admiral Pasak, joins the case. Patel says that we want to amend the changes, sees how the deal is being rejected. We want to charge them for knowingly falsifying their entry details, violating Starfleet Code 614 to 617, preventing officers from engaging in genetic engineering, and 2 counts of sedition. They want to seek 20 years in prison or a Federation penal colony.
And this is when the plea deal gets said. When they mention the plea deal in one of the early scenes, it's basically they're like, oh, well, you know, what do you want? Do you want to leave scot-free and then we never bring this up again? Or do you want like 2 years in jail? Because that's what they were suggesting. Yeah. And then now that she's rejected it, they've literally just brought all these other charges in to be like, okay, we're going to aim for 20 years in prison. Like... And you know, it's that jump up of just being like, oh, they desperately want this to be dropped. They desperately want, like, you know, this to not go through.
But the
whole thing about law is that if you bring stuff in front of a country, if you bring stuff in front of a population, that it starts a question going. And that's the dangerous thing. Like, so having people think about this and having people brought into a discussion is probably more dangerous than actually ignoring it, which, yeah.
But they also say themselves in the next scene, like, why is it such a joke? Because they wanted it because they wanted Una so desperately to accept the plea and to drop it, they are now going to make an example, because this is now going to be made public.
Yeah.
Or at least known in Starfleet, because I don't think it'd be made public per se, but maybe within military it would be thing. But basically saying, if we can't make this go away quietly, we will then bang to rights Una and use her as an example, so that anyone in the future thinks twice before doing the very same thing, which we have seen on multiple occasions in real life. This is what they do. You know, they will use someone as an example, as a deterrent for everyone else in the future. Be it be good, be it be bad.
Yeah.
So the next scene, like you said, they want to use him. Pasak wants to bring Admiral April to the stand to testify in the court. And Una goes, well, that must be a good thing. And Nero's like, well, no, because Pasak wouldn't... the Patak, there's a lot of P's, I should get a pop filter, wouldn't bring a friendly witness out without a strategy.
Yeah. Now, this admiral is someone who's helped Una throughout the whole career.
Yep.
Like, he is basically how Una got into Starfleet, and he's the person who effectively got her promoted up to the level that she is. So the idea of him being brought to the stand, and obviously we get to see how good the new lawyer is. They're called Neela, aren't they? The lawyer?
Neera.
Is it Neela? Neera, yeah. How good Neera is as a lawyer, because she sees what is happening here, where they just go, oh, well, if it's my mate and they're being brought to the witness stand, and that's going to be great. But effectively what it is that going, hey, they're going to have a strategy, and they're going to use his duty to basically sort of bury you. Like,
oh, yeah, yeah.
That's what they try and do.
Because at this stage, Una wants to take the stand. You know, I want to defend myself. I want to tell them my story. And at this stage, Neera's going, no, we are going to do it my way this time, not your way. Una agrees, and then we see that Neera goes is being back to the Enterprise, is set up in Una's quarters by Pike, and asks La'an for the Starfleet Uniform Code of Justice because it's going to help the case.
Yeah,
La'an at this point feels that she may be able to help based on the case of Starfleet versus Wick, where evidence was dismissed on a technicality. And Una believes that at this stage the evidence might have to be dismissed because it was either unlawfully submitted or falsified or gained or falsified.
And the interesting thing here is that, like, there's a subtext in the episode, which is the fact of La'an's backstory, like we said, is that she is a descendant of Noonien Singh, the augment and, you know, dictator, basically. And she hates augments. She has an absolute bias towards augments, but that gets challenged in season 1 of it when she finds out that Una is one. Yeah. Like, Una, who literally saved her life and has given her the life that she has now. And it's basically, we've seen this change in La'an where basically, you know, they're going, oh, well, but they're my friend, but they're something I hate. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're not all bad kind of thing. But it's the idea of we still don't know who actually told on Una, because the whole crew found out that she was an augment, but an Illyrian. But then basically all went, oh, cool, she's our mate, so we won't tell anyone, and kept it a secret. And then somehow Starfleet found out. So we still don't know if someone turned them in or if it happened a different way. And so having La'an basically go, hey, I want to help and I want to see if I can do something. And there's an element of suspicion. There's an element of suspicion because we're like, did La'an turn them in? Like, we thought that they'd come far, but were they still kind of, oh, but actually I did it, you know, because I hate Illyrians, you know, or I hate augments. And so there's that thing here, which is why this scene feels a bit tense, where you're a bit not sure on La'an's intentions.
Yeah.
And throughout the episode, when she's investigating, we are a bit like, maybe it was her, and maybe she's trying to cover her tracks, you know.
And at this stage of Strange New Worlds as well, we should point out, yes, she is a Noonien Singh, but it's yet to be fully explored. We do have a backstory for La'an, which was explored in season 1, where she was on a civilian ship for a colony and they were attacked by the Gorn, and the Gorn essentially were harvesting humans to lay eggs and to be food for their young. That's all we know for La'an. The whole Noonien Singh thing has yet to be explored in Strange New Worlds, and it will be very interesting to see how they explore that. Sorry. So at this stage, La'an's hatred for not augments but genetically modified people is strong. We don't know fully what she's been told about Khan Noonien Singh at this point. We don't know. But the hate is there, and we see that in season 1 when we find out that Una is an Illyrian and that La'an feels betrayed. she feels absolutely betrayed by this.
Yeah.
So at this stage of the episode, it's a very much who done it. We don't, we don't know who reported Una to Starfleet, because the next scene is in the new mess hall where Pike and Patel are talking, and Pike wants to take the stand to help defend Una, and Patel quite rightly asks him, how did you guys meet? And
this is great though, because Patel is basically, she is the prosecution, but she helps Pike out. She helps Pike out in this situation, because he is very much going, no, I'm the best witness. I could totally stand up for her in court. And that's not the point. You answer the questions that they give you. And then basically Patel walks him down a scenario and tricks him into basically going, hey, so how do you feel about this? And then he goes, oh, I can't answer this question without incriminating myself and Una. And she's like, that's why we're not asking you on the stand. That's why Una's not being asked on the stand, because, if they answer the facts as they are, it is still illegal. And the whole point isn't whether the law is wrong. The whole point is, did you break that law that exists?
Because it's not about taking the stand and giving an inspiring speech, as is what's referenced earlier on in the scene,
which he's very good at, as we've seen.
As he's giving a speech to Una. This is how they met. He was giving a speech to Una at the academy and she pulled him up on his bullshit. And it's very much that Patel is trying to convince Pike, you giving that speech will not do anything. They will cross examine you. They will pull you up and you will be fucked. But it won't just be Una, it would be you, and it would be the entire crew of the Enterprise. So, she said, not only for Una's sake, but for your sake and the crew of the Enterprise, do not take the stand.
The problem we have is that everyone knew about it, because everyone found out that Una was like an Illyrian and shouldn't be in Starfleet, and then they didn't say anything, and that makes them complicit to conspiracy. And basically it just means, like, if anyone says that they knew about this before Starfleet found out about it themselves, then all their careers are fucked.
Because they're all accessories.
Yeah, that's it. That's the word I was trying to think of. Accessories.
Sorry.
I'll think about Claire's accessories. Can you get me some bangles?
Oh, Claire's accessories. Give us a call, darling.
I hate Claire's accessories because they have that offer on.
Doesn't matter, darling.
You won't know. They have the trick offer where it's basically you get 4 items and you get 1 free. But try finding 4 fucking items you want in Claire's accessories. You just you get to 3 and you'll be like, it's the hours I've spent.
Thank God the Starship Adequate has replicators that barely work. But we do get a little bit of a light-hearted part of this scene where we see Ortegas and Mbenga watching Spock and Pasak the Patak talking, and Ortegas is going,
it's
dubbing.
Great. No, it's great though, because basically Ortega is joking about this. Like she's very much joking about like how they're just sitting there stock still, talking to each other like calmly, and you just like go, and obviously very much kind of going, oh yeah, why is he getting on with this, like, Vulcan dickhead, getting in bed with the enemy kind of thing. And then, like you say, Mbenga kind of points out that there's a lot more to this than meets the eye.
He turned around and he goes, you don't see it? They hate each other. They absolutely detest each other. And it's confirmed when Spock we hear nothing, we see nothing, we just see 2 people having a quiet conversation. And Spock comes over and he's going, I apologise that you had to witness that outburst. And he's like, out of all of Sarek's former colleagues, Pasak brings out the worst in me. And they're just like,
I mean, it doesn't help that he looks like the fucking villain from Stingray. Is it? No.
Oh my God, he does.
He actually.
And Pike's Troy Tempest.
If you're watching on the YouTube, basically, like when it scrolls along, there's a bald character, and he is the character we're talking about with these massive eyebrows, and he looks like the villain from Thunderbirds. But
Thunderbirds as well. Oh, it was Thunderbirds. It was my God.
Because
it was.
Stingray was the weird guy who just had a house that transformed, but in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, why did you change it back? No one will find it.
The villain in Thunderbirds was the Hood. Yes, all Pasak has to do is have glowing yellow eyes, and we have got the Hood from Wow, we have got Thunderbirds into the Star Trek.
He's
review.
coming up. He's there on the screen now. But yeah, no.
Becca confirms it. Becca's just said, I thought it was just me. Yes! Wow! Science Officer Synoiz coming out with a deep fucking cut tonight.
There he is. I'm looking at him now. It's the Hood. But the whole point is that, like, it shows that in Star Trek you can't judge a book by its cover, and how different races act in different ways. So that's something that, like, would be very nuanced to that race won't get picked up by other ones. And here we see, like, that Vulcans, even if they're not expressing anger, even if they're not, like, outwardly sort of showing, like, discomfort, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. And that there's other tells that they have that Umbenga in this case is able to pick up on and be like, yeah, okay, it looks like they're sitting there having a nice chat kind of thing, not really giving any body language, but you can tell that it's incredibly uncomfortable for both of them. And I just loved it. I agree with Dustin. It was a very good little thing. And this is what Trek does best. Little nuances of character development, little things where it goes, oh, this race does this. And you don't need a whole episode about it. You just need that throwaway little section. And then we know more about Vulcans. We know more about Ferengi. We know more about Illyrians. Yeah.
Because it doesn't shoehorn it. It doesn't make a song and dance about it. It literally just puts you into that world and goes, yes, there are different cultures. Oh yeah, they do this, they do this, they do this. No biggie, but they do this, they do this. And this is world building at its finest, where it's like, yeah, the Vulcans, that was an outburst for the Vulcans, and you're just like, oh damn, like, what do they do when they are pissed? But
we saw at the end of season 1.
Well, yeah, we do. But
punishes everyone.
We see La'an on the bridge going to Uhura and wanting access to all the personal logs ship-wide and all communications relating to Una. Uhura refuses because it is against regulations and understands that La'an is trying to help Una and she sympathises, but props to Uhura, she absolutely refuses.
This whole episode is about protecting the people who would protect you. It's basically all about being in it for other people.
Yeah.
And this is basically La'an goes, hey, could you just open up these private files and get me in a lot of trouble by doing it? And Uhura's
GDPR!
Like, no. That's it. It's like, yeah, he's just like, oh my God, you've had it more than 2 years. Oh, do we still need this on file?
Actually, it's 6 years.
Is it?
Sorry.
Oh my God.
That's you failing GDPR.
But no, 2 years is better. 2 years means we renew it quicker. Anyway,
two-factor authentication, Synoiz.
But the whole thing is that basically Uhura isn't willing to do it.
Yes.
She could do it, but she's just like, no, I'm not going to let you do this because your career will be over if when this gets found out. Even though, and obviously we wonder why Lana's thinking that the personal logs, but she's got a theory at this point that basically Starfleet actually nobody like told on them, like nobody actually sort of snitched on Una. It was actually that Starfleet are actually checking personal logs and that they're reading people's personal information. And that's how they found out, because if someone had mentioned in a personal transmission or mentioned in a personal log, then it would have been found out. And that's kind of creepy, really, that Starfleet, this big lovely thing, is actually checking everything you do,
And it's also worrying that in the 23rd century, people still have those same concerns about their privacy. That an organisation,
another parallel to nowadays.
Yeah, well, it's. I mean, firsthand, I've experienced this firsthand, where an organisation has gained access to personal information that they shouldn't have, and it's not the fault of you or anything like that. They have got access to this information, and it is a parallel to today. And it's okay, these companies with any will in the world will find a way. So I can sort of, it's a great little nod to Christopher Reeves just said, Alexa, stop listening.
It's really creepy though. We did it like I turned it all off on my phone and stuff, but we had it with like a mate where we were joking about like how it all works, and therefore we had had his mobile phone, and we were basically just saying loads of stuff about a particular product where we were like, oh, I love micro machines. Micro machines are the best thing in the entire world. Remember when we used to play with micro machines and stuff all the time? And then obviously, like an hour later, he goes on Facebook and all the adverts are for micro machines.
Yeah.
And we're like, we weren't telling the phone to record. We weren't saying it out loud. We weren't searching for micro machines. But the phone just sitting there idly just listens and just goes, oh, cool, that's in someone's database now. And it's how terrifying technology is when, you know, and obviously we just go like they have with Alexa and like how they have with all we have that they're not going to use this for malicious purposes is their word. And you're like, okay, that's a bit. And Starfleet's like, don't worry, we'll totally protect you. But we've also used what we found out to arrest you. So
guys, sorry if there was
that's basically the string that she's going down, basically.
Sorry if there was an interruption there. There was a slight hiccup.
It's me, but with this awful face, I'm like, I'll try and get it back. So I'm like,
I don't know what's going on.
It froze me like that, so I'm like, oh.
It's not us. It's not the internet. If anyone's still here.
No, I'm blaming the internet.
Oh, wait, have we come back?
Big tech, it is.
Oh, it's big tech.
It is big tech.
Oh,
we're coming in here with the facts, like coming in, telling them how it is.
That's very weird, and I tell you how I know it's not my internet, because my phone is off, and I still had the same issue. My phone is off. The internet.
I think if everyone starts getting out, concern that we have is another great parallel.
We've just disconnected again, and now we've reconnected. What is going on? What is going on? My days.
But yeah, sorry, let's continue with the episode then.
Yes, let's continue. As ever, guys, if anything does happen, let us know. I apologise for the technical issues. Trust me, it is not us. I'm running perfectly fine, and so Synoiz.
It seems fine. It seems it's skipping. It's keep doing it.
Apologies.
What is the next scene in this? Like,
the trial begins. The
trial begins.
Yes.
Now I love this because in this trial it has the computer voice, and you can tell that they're getting someone to do the computer voice that sounds a lot like Margelle. Like,
yes.
And it's this thing of obviously they can't get her because she's dead. But the fact is that they've got the same kind of vibe with his voice, where they've got this kind of cold but then still personable kind of woman's voice, and I appreciated what they tried to do here.
Yeah. I'm just having a quick look, make sure everything's all right before I continue. Bear with us, guys. Everything seems to be fine. It's very strange. The trial. I mean, this begins. What is the best segment of this entire episode? First and foremost, we'll get it out the way. The Tellarite looks like an original series Tellarite. I do appreciate that. That's all the Trek nod I'm going to do, because this is, from here on in, this is extremely serious. This is relevant to today's issues, and the acting, the performance, the direction, the music, all the way through the remainder of this episode is perfect. It is extremely well done. It is thoughtful. It is relevant. So, yes, we will make jokes, but we just want to get it out there that me and Synoiz absolutely adore everything about this. So, Una pleads not guilty to the charges. The reasons... So Nera basically says the reasons the Federation's banned genetic engineering are many, but mainly because of the eugenics wars on Earth. Nera then says slavery was once legal, apartheid was once legal, discrimination against race, colour, gender and sexuality. A law does not make something just. And the Federation was built on a utopia, but in building that utopia they blinded themselves to a centuries-old fear that has made them become persecutors. And I thought, just to get a trial started like that, to get into this episode like that, holy shit! Like, it hits home. Like, in the times that we're living at the moment, it really does hit home for a lot of people.
it points out how important history is. And this is what we've had over the last couple of years, where it's the idea of going, yeah, you can't rely on the law because, like we say, slavery was once perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like, this idea of all these horrible things, none of them have happened illegally. Like, that's the scary thing. All of the big wars and stuff, like, well, actually, no, I suppose Hitler really shouldn't have invaded Poland. But aside from that,
But it
the
was
idea
legal
of,
for him.
yeah, that's it. It's the idea of, you could justify it legally.
Yeah.
And her entire case is basically pointing out, like, how unjust this is, like, how unjust this law is, and how laws change, and how societies get past certain things, and laws should represent that.
Yeah, because she says that Una had to hide herself through fear of persecution and to prevent others from being uncomfortable. And again, it's another message about what's going on today with LGBTQ rights, with transgender rights. It's absolutely can I just
the
say
idea of people having to hide themselves?
Yeah,
yeah.
And can I just say what is happening to trans people in the United States and in the UK? It is disgusting. It is sickening to persecute someone for wanting to be themselves. It's abhorrent. Absolutely abhorrent. Sorry to bring the vibe down. I just needed to get that out there. But April takes a stand and is interrogated by Patel, or examined by Patel.
Yeah.
April praises Una. He even sponsored their application to the Starfleet Academy. He has an investment in their career. He is then asked if he found out that Una was genetically modified and was an Illyrian, would you have sponsored her application to the Academy? April says no, absolutely not. It was the law. I uphold the law.
Wait, he takes a while to answer it. He takes a moment to answer it, but then basically he kind of throws her under the bus, where he kind of just says, yeah, if that was the situation, like, if I'd known about that, I wouldn't have, because he puts Starfleet higher than Una. He puts Starfleet, the law above her as a person.
Yeah, because he basically says to everyone, guys, is no one is above the law, and the law is whole. In walks Neera, who basically tears April a new one.
Wait, it's how good Neera is as a lawyer, pointing out all of these fallacies, like pointing out all of these nonsense like things. But we have April basically representing the sort of April kind of represents how we all are when the problem doesn't affect us. Where it's this idea of when they're not the ones persecuted, it's easy enough to be like, oh, well, that's the law. I was just doing my job. And that's how we get problems where, we get people who go, well, I'm not affected by this. So, I'll just step aside. And you're like, yeah, but you're in a position of power. You're in a position of power, so you need to have a stance on this. You can't just be like, oh, well, someone else told me it was bad, so I just kind of rolled with it.
Well, yeah, because...
And that's what we have right at the minute.
But she pulls him up because they go into General Order 1, which, if you don't know, guys, is the Prime Directive. They
haven't called it the Prime Directive yet, I don't think.
In the original series of Star Trek, the Prime Directive was called General Order 1. We do see in this episode where they name it as the Prime Directive. That is non-interference in a species that is pre-warp, because it will interrupt the natural evolution and natural progression of that species as a whole. So Neera says, well, you upheld you say you would have upheld Article 12, which is the prevention of people who have been genetically modified getting into Starfleet. However, 2246, you warned a pre-warp civilization of a possible apocalyptic meteor shower. He did another thing in 2248 where he sent a science officer to Norrell to sort an extinction level threat, which was a drought. And then on Manus 2, you revealed yourself to a pre-warp situation. So she basically says, the law for you is subjective and you bend it to your own will how you see fit.
And the idea of how nuts it is that he's going, oh, well, we've got this law against genetically modified people, and we're going to uphold that, but I'm willing to bend the law in these other situations that I personally think it's allowed in. and just that weird double standard that he has there. And that's the same as nowadays. Like, it's the fact of when you get people who are biased, when you get people who are racist, or stuff, there's still stuff that they're like, oh, but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And it's that weird crazy stuff. Like, yeah, so many people where they're like, oh well, I don't like this on religious grounds, but I'm perfectly fine with this, oh well, with theft or not paying my taxes, or like I don't know, torrenting or something else that's illegal, and being like, hang on, how are you fine with this breaking of the law but not this other one that also affects people? And and that's how people justify it. And it points out that the bias isn't that they're hiding behind the law, not they're hiding behind the law to hide their actual bias, where they just don't want this thing because they're scared of like genetically modified people, and that's why they're upholding this law, rather than because it's actually dangerous or because it's actually what the law is.
Yeah,
I went on a ramble there. Sorry.
Well, no, absolutely fine, because the judges put a stop to the let's be honest, an interrogation into April about his interpretation of the law, how he sees fit per every situation. Neera then comes back and says, well, Una's changes were done before she was even born, without her consent, and she has been arrested because of a violation of the law. The regulations are flimsy and suggestive at best. April wouldn't have sponsored Una's entrance, but also accuses Neera accuses him of discrimination and prejudice. And this results.
It's just a very good point, like what she does here.
Yeah, but this results in all of April's testimony being stricken from the record.
This is how bad it is, where basically you can tell that the court is biased in a particular way because they do this, where they basically go, oh, because she pointed all of this out and pointed out, the flaws in the system. And it's the fact of the system protects its own, as we see. Yeah. And it's the fact of, oh, they're like, oh, bollocks. Now we have it on testimony that April has confessed to, yes, I bent the rules, yes, I broke the prime directive and stuff, and they have that on tape. They're like, oh, well, let's just remove that from the record. So they're demonstrating her point, like, by getting rid of her point. And it's just like, okay, right, so you're willing to just hide all of that evidence and go, oh, well, it's kind of fine that he broke the prime directive, we just won't mention it. It's that's part of how good this episode is.
But this is the thing, because April is naturally pissed, and in a brief scene we see between Pike and April, April goes, well, this lawyer was your idea, and he's like, she's the best civil defense lawyer in the galaxy, and he's like, well, I could have basically told the judges all the positives of Una being in Starfleet, and I didn't get the chance. And then Una herself is absolutely pissed at Neera for attacking April and the Federation, and then it becomes apparent to Una that Neera is using this case as a platform for dismantling the law and to bring justice to the Illyrians, but she's using it as a soapbox to broadcast her hatred of the Federation. And Neera raises a point, it's not just about you. It's about all Illyrians who have been unjustly persecuted by the Federation because of stuff that happened before they were born. And it's like, you can appreciate both sides of this, but I mean, in the haste, Neera just walks out because Una just believes that Neera just hates Starfleet, hates the Federation, and doesn't realise that Neera is using this as a platform to raise a bigger issue, a wider issue, that it's not just... Go on.
But it's also demonstrating Neera's bias. It's also pointing out that Neera hates the Federation. And that's born of her own persecution by the Federation and, like how she sees them. But it's the fact of she does hate them. Like, she wants to take them down. She wants to use this case to point out and, effectively get egg on the Federation's face. And it's that idea of going, when we're talking about bias and like hate and bigotry in this, nobody is free of it. Like, it's the fact that Neera has this, but then over the course of the episode, everyone kind of comes to terms with their own bias. And that's part of what's wonderful with it. But we'll get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that, because the next stage of the court scene is Nira brings 3 character witnesses to the stand: La'an, Spock, and Mbenga. Spock references, and I don't know if you know this, Synoiz, references the day he met Una, which was actually a short trek. It was
I've only seen this one.
It was done after season 2 Discovery, but it's basically Spock's first day as an ensign on the Enterprise, where he meets Una and they both get stuck in a turbo lift. And this is how the love of Gilbert and Sullivan is referenced. So I thought that was a nice nod to a long forgotten short trek. They all defend Una though, and they all praise her. Basically, you know, they're asked if, do you think Una was hiding something? Nope. And Spock goes, yes, her love of Gilbert and Sullivan. And you get that lovely little Vulcan eyebrow raise, and like, ting, and I'm like, oh wow. So every time he raises an eyebrow, we're just going to get a triangle ting now.
I will say though, I don't think this joke worked as well as it could do, but it was brave of them to put a joke in the middle of this episode, you know?
If anything, the last 2 episodes, there has been an issue with misplaced humour. So the last episode, it was like, what's your thing? Oh, I want to ship to go now. Yeah, we're on the clock here, Pet.
The problem is, though, the last episode was a farce. The whole episode was like an intentional comedy farce.
Yeah.
But with this one, it's like you can tell that they're trying to put humor into it, but they're going, this is a pretty serious episode. But it's just so good though. But all their testimonies and everyone defending like Una, even Lan basically just going, you know, showing that maybe she's over her personal sort of hatred of you know, genetically modified people.
Yeah, because they all basically say, because Nira says to La'an, you know, how do you meet Una? And basically Una rescued La'an. You know, La'an was saved from this Gorn breeding. Una sponsored her application into Starfleet. Long and short of it, with, you know, La'an wouldn't be alive.
It points out that La'an is, you know, she's on the list for a commendation. She's on the list of basically just being rewarded for how good she is as an officer. And obviously Nira points out, like, hey, so all of those people that you saved from your time in Starfleet, all of those great things that you've done, and all of these things that Starfleet's going to commend you for, wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for Una. Like, if they hadn't have saved you. And, you know, Lana admits, like, I would not be in Starfleet if it hadn't have been for her. And it's pointing out that idea of going, how many good deeds does someone have to do until they're sort of past, you know, what they're born with, you know? Like,
it's an impossible
and
thing.
Spock points out this thing where Spock points out that he doesn't like Starfleet, like what's the phrasing he uses, where he just goes, you know, he doesn't want to see Starfleet like hurt itself. And they're like, how do you mean? And he's like, well, by losing one of its best officers.
Oh, it would be destructive to Starfleet. The loss of Una would be destructive to Starfleet, I believe.
Yeah, and it's true. It's the idea of going, so to prove this stupid point that you have against Augments, you're actually going to shoot yourselves in the foot and lose one of your best officers.
Yeah.
And it's not that they would be willing to do that, you know, just to adhere to this draconian law.
Well, that's the thing, because they all basically say she is a friend, she is family. And you get that sense. Out of all the ensemble casts of the recent ones, bar Picard, obviously, this ensemble feels like a family, like they are very well gelled together, which after one season is pretty bloody good going to get that sort of dynamic.
Well, it's just incredible. Like we talked about last week with the other episode where it just goes, hey, you can just have an episode without Pike and it works perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, that's how Trek works.
Because those characters are strong enough without him.
Yeah. And then in this one, where it's like some characters we don't get to see too much of, like Uhura doesn't really do much in this episode.
Pike doesn't really.
They still, yeah, that's it. Like Pike has like an original scene, you know, the opening scene, and then after that, it's all about Una, it's all about Lan, it's all about Nira, you know. And the fact that we get these new characters and we love them or hate them in the case of the Vulcan, you know, very quickly. It's just fantastic acting.
Because we go back to the Enterprise and La'an brings Nira the Uniform Code of Justice, and then Nira asks her, well,
Which is a book, by the way, because I thought it was actually
book.
A uniform. Yeah. But it's basically just a big law book.
Big FAQ. But
It's not actually. It's one of those find your own adventure books.
I thought it was
It's
a
just
Game
like,
Facts
you open
translation.
it and it's just like, you will find yourself in the Hollow Suite. What will you do? Turn to page 465 if you load one of Riker's kinky programs.
But this is. Nira asks if La'an has made any progress in finding out who it was. We finally get the admission from La'an that she believes it was her own recorded personal log that has dropped Una in it. And
Which is why she was looking into them.
Yeah, because she believes it's been leaked.
Yeah.
Or they
or Starfleet were listening to people's personal logs and found out the information that way.
Yeah. We do get a reference to Noonien Singh again, where La'an believes that she can become dangerous because of her family's past. Nira does have a very good way of words where it's nothing wrong with her, there is no hidden monsters inside. This is how others make us feel. They look down at us for so long, we look down on ourselves. The doubt is drilled into us. I mean, in my younger years, yes, I was bullied heavily, and you do get that drilled into you. Like you get made to feel like you're not good enough. And
it's the idea of society tells you if you are not this, then if you are not this, then you are wrong. There is something wrong with you because this is the norm. Or even if it's not something that you can see, it just makes you go, hey, if you don't feel this way, then you are wrong. And therefore we have all these people who are like, oh, but I don't get this, or I don't understand this bit of culture, or I don't understand this, and therefore they just feel isolated because and the reality is that society isn't a fixed thing. It's not a case where everyone is this, everyone is that. This is why we've got gender, all of the gender stuff at the minute, because we're going, oh wait, yeah, we don't fit in fucking boxes. It's the idea of just going, and why should I be made to feel that I should live my life or feel a certain way or look a certain way just because that's what makes society easier to deal with? I mean, this has an amazing line where she points out, you were born with the capacity for actions, good or ill. And that's it. No one is born evil. No one is born bad. Everyone has the capacity to make their own mind up. It's not like we're going, oh, everyone who's like sort of a different race, oh, well, they're evil by default. You're like, I mean, the Bible might say that, but let me get started on the Bible. But, it's that idea of, the world just doesn't work like that. And you should judge everyone on their own merits and their own failings rather than like grouping everyone together.
Well, we do get to the pinnacle of this episode where Una is put onto the stand, and Nira is examining Una. We find out that Una has been in Starfleet for 25 years. It was her life goal. All she ever wanted to do was to join Starfleet, and we get a reference to the title of the episode, Ad Astra per Aspera, to the stars through hardship, which
I thought it was like I'd like an aspirin.
I genuinely feel I've got a banging head, so yes, Ad Astra per aspirin, please, at the moment.
Hold on, do you mean banging? I've got a banging head.
I've got a banging head, yes.
Oh, it's got, look at my frosted tips.
Yeah, the frosted tips have got into my skull and they are killing me. So,
I think it's just a plant that's taken root.
It probably is. This is cordyceps. This is all it is. But again, this is continuing with the very minor Enterprise references. This is another reference to Star Trek Enterprise because in that series the flag does say Ad Astra per Aspera, to the stars through hardship. They have patches on it in the last ever episode. Una says it was the motto of Starfleet before they joined the Federation. Everyone can find salvation in the Federation and Starfleet, and Una starts to discuss her childhood on the colony in the Volterra Nebula, where Illyrians were provided provisional membership into the Federation on the proviso that they do not conduct genetic manipulation, genetic modification of any kind. But as she said,
the point here is that they go into this, and the court tries to stop her going into this because they say it's irrelevant. Whereas Nira points out that actually Una's childhood and their cultural upbringing is very, very relevant to the case, which is how they go into this. But it kind of points out the fact of this race, genetic modification, because they don't see anything wrong with it, is a cultural aspect. It is basically a part of their culture. And it's almost like us saying, oh, well, refugees who come over here, they just have to stop doing everything they do. They need to eat differently. They need to get used to our stuff. They need to speak our language. They need to stop worshipping whatever they worship and stuff. And you just kind of go, that's a big fucking ask. It's a big fucking ask for someone.
Well, yeah, because she said they can't. They for some families it was their tradition and their heritage, and they didn't never discuss their customs. They were performed rituals in secret. They hid the modifications where they could. They used friendly doctors to deliver babies, as if anyone found out, they would be arrested in this Federation colony. And Neera says,
even if not arrested, it's the fact of society would turn on them.
Yeah.
It's the idea of basically they're hiding because even if it wasn't illegal, the bias would still be there, where basically people would sort of treat them differently if they found out. So they're living in hiding as a culture.
Well, yeah, but Neera asks, was anyone arrested? And she goes on about her best friend's cousin, who was arrested because he got an injury, and some Illyrians glow when they heal. And that's when the persecution and the discrimination began to become rampant. There was attacks on people, and she said there was a fight at school and her leg got broken. But she couldn't go to a doctor, the leg got infected, and by some miracle they found a sympathetic doctor at midnight to fix the leg. Otherwise, she would have died.
Yeah, which is how nuts it is, where it's the idea of, like, like a simple thing that would have been really easy for a doctor to fix. The family were like, oh, no, if we go to a doctor, they're going to see that you're an Illyrian, so let's not. And then obviously they just kind of tried to fix it themselves. They left it got infected, and it could have killed her.
Yeah.
And it's that crazy thing of just going, wow, we're really going to cut people off from, like, resources purely because, we don't want them.
But she goes on about how the discrimination within this colony got to a point where stores would refuse to serve them. There was more attacks. There was graffiti. The word augment was placed on their doors, and it got to a point where the local government split the city in two between Illyrians and non-Illyrians.
And it's crazy because we think that all of this is gone from society. We kind of think, oh yeah, that's what happened to the Jews. That's Kristallnacht in, like, sort of, the 1930s and stuff. And it's the idea of this stuff still fucking happens. Like, for instance, like the girl podcast I do, two of our ex-presenters that we had on it, they live together in a house in Jarrow, which is a nice area in Jarrow, but basically because they're unashamedly gay, because they basically have their cultures, they'll have a little flag in the window, or they do silly things. Like, basically they had like what was it? I think, I think they had like sort of stupid stuff in the window, not offensive stuff, but just sort of stupid stuff. And obviously when they're outside, they're sort of like, romantic with each other or whatnot. And people saw, and the next day they woke up and they had fag spray painted over their back door. And this is last year. So it's this idea of this still happens, so when we talk about, oh, it's Americans being weird, or, oh, it's like sort of Russia being weird or whatnot, this still happens. Yep. Like, and it's the fact of, just because we don't see it directly, or just because it's not in the news as much as it used to be, yes, it's gone down a bit, but we've got to think about the next plight of, like we were saying earlier, the plight of trans people, and being like, what are they going through? How do we find out? We speak to them. And it's keeping that dialogue open, but a lot of the times we don't want to keep that dialogue open because we go, oh, we're going to hear loads of horrible stuff that we really don't want to deal with as a society. How about we just don't mention it?
It's sad that in this day and age that we as a culture have not progressed past this yet. And it feels like a regression in some ways. And I think this is why this sort of Star Trek is needed now more than ever, because our generation had it. The generation in the 60s and 70s had it. It's needed again. Star Trek is the torchbearer for the way humanity should behave. And it does, it paints a utopia in some senses, but it then says, well, hey, they still have these issues in the future, but it's hard to display as a perfect utopia without having issues where they can discuss today's issues in a scientific sci-fi context.
This is what Trek does well, though. Like I said at the beginning, if you just go, hey, we're going to do a story and it's about a trans person, then all of the bigots are going to watch it being like, oh, I don't like this, it's about trans people. Oh, I don't like trans people because I'm a fucking idiot. But it's the idea of like, sorry, I quite like that voice. Hello, I'm a bigot. But the idea of like, if you wrap it up in metaphor, if you wrap it up in euphemism, and you present a situation that they go, oh, I can understand it on this level, even though it's the same thing, then you open doors. And that's what Trek does best. Like we say, Far Beyond the Stars with DS9, where that tackles, like, because we tend to hide our history. We tend to be like, oh, we've kind of racism. That was kind of horrible. Let's just never mention that, and then start trying to hide bits of history. And then Far Beyond the Stars basically goes, no, this is what it was like. This is how awful it was being like a black person, and that you weren't taken seriously by society in the same capacity of now. And then we're getting a new parable here, which is like going, hey, you're an Illyrian. You didn't choose to be Illyrian. You didn't get any choice about it, but because you had a dream that conflicted with what the establishment like wants, then sorry, fuck you, the law is against you. And you're like, maybe laws need to change.
Well, I mean,
sorry, I'm going off on so many rants. Sorry,
please.
People in the chat, sorry if I'm going off on one too much, but
do not apologize, because getting back to the split in this city, it was split between non-Illyrians and Illyrians, and Una's family stayed with the non-Illyrians. And this is how we find out why there was beef between Neera and Una, because they were friends when they were younger, and Neera stayed with the Illyrians, Una left. And then Neera goes, well, after all this strife, all this persecution, all this hatred that you came up against, you still wanted to be a Starfleet officer. And she said, well, I believe that Starfleet has the capacity to be a perfect organisation. And, to have that hope is to have that hope that someone, that this organisation can be not perfect, but can be perfect in the future. Yeah, and then we get to the crux of it, where we finally find out who told Starfleet that she was an Illyrian, and it was actually Una herself. Because she turned herself in. Why did she risk her career? She was sick of living a lie. She wanted her crew to know who she really was, so she could finally be safe in Starfleet, and Starfleet could understand her race better. After all this, she wanted to be accepted for who she is, really.
I mean, it's so beautiful. Like, and it makes me tear up a little bit, but it's the idea of when, like, it's that kind of crazy thing. Like, it was like with my coming out story, where it was the fact of when I came out to both my parents separately, the first thing that they said, both of them, was don't tell your father or don't tell your mother. Like, so I told my dad, and they were like, oh, okay, we'll deal with this. Like, obviously a bit sort of shaken, but being like, don't tell your mother, because we don't know what that is. And there was immediately this response to contain it, to kind of go, hey, let's contain this and we'll deal with it. And then the fact of, because Una gets kind of outed in season 1 as an Illyrian, where she saves everyone, then the crew immediately goes, cool, okay, let's just never discuss this. Don't tell everyone. We'll have a vow of silence. We won't tell Starfleet about it. It'll just be our little secret. And then obviously Una's just dwelling on that, just being like, what? So I'm the cage just got a bit bigger. Like, that's the only difference.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful that she kind of go like, well, we've all been thinking, oh, maybe it's Uhura, maybe it's Lan, maybe it's like someone else on the crew. It's actually Una being like, no, actually, fuck it. If I can't, and this is what we're getting with a lot of trans people nowadays, where it's the idea of going, fuck it, I will take the risk. I will go out there because if I can't live my authentic self, then what's the fucking point of anything? And, that's what we do when anyone takes to the street as their actual true self or what they believe their true self to be, because it doesn't fucking matter about genetics. It doesn't fucking matter if you can scientifically prove that someone does this. You just go, hey, what would make you happy? Oh, why shouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
That's the argument, effectively.
It's true. You do what makes you happy. You do what fulfills you. Don't care what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. And Una basically, Una, not Una, because I hate her because she's from Final Fantasy X. Una. How did that get a sequel? Answers in the comments. How is 10 the one with a sequel? Anyway. But yeah, like Una basically is just like, I'm sick of hiding. And it's a wonderful stance. And obviously Nira, the lawyer, is wonderfully played in this and is kind of shocked. Like, she's keeping her cool, but she is like, oh, wasn't expecting that. But
well, yeah, because Una finally said,
but she is like, oh fuck.
The final thing that Una says is that the other reason was a crew visited her planet from Starfleet, and they were, when she was young, and they were diverse. They were from different races, different genders, different species. They were all working together side by side, and if they could do it, maybe she could too, and be part of something bigger than herself. And this is at the point where, again, she says, Ad Astra per Aspera, and then Nira has no further questions. But then, Pasak the Patak pipes the fuck up after saying nothing all episode, and then just drops the bomb. Wants to know how long Pike knew Una was an Illyrian before Starfleet found out. Una admits that it was Stardate, whatever.
Well, this is the thing, though. It's the idea of, before that happens, we have this tension, because what they're trying to do, and it's the whole thing of, like we get with legality, where people view things in such a cold way. They view reality in such a cold, detached way because it makes it easier to deal with. But as soon as you actually start getting emotional about stuff, as soon as you start going, oh, but this is how I feel, people are like, oh, but we can't deal with that.
Yeah.
And so basically he brings it back on track to basically go, yeah, but you still broke the law as it's written. And puts her in a position where he's like, hey, you can either back down or incriminate all of your crew and your captain and basically bring everyone down with you, and puts her in this horrible position. And then she eventually, after a long pause, says the start date that everyone on the Enterprise found out, which basically says, hey, yeah, they knew about it for 4 months before Starfleet found out. That basically incriminates all of them, that they knew that this was happening.
Yeah, because in the next scene, Pasak says that Una is toxic to Starfleet and wants her to be found guilty of all charges.
Which, to be fair, is a rich statement from someone with those fucking eyebrows.
Well, he is the Hood from Thunderbirds. That's all we're going to say.
It's so thick. I should put like eyeshadow in my eyebrows and thicken them up. I'll do that next week. I'll try and be your Vulcan.
But after all this, after this play, he drops that bomb and he's like, yeah, you broke the law as the law is written. So did Pike. So did your crew. So because you have not backed down, I am taking you down. I am taking Pike down. I am taking the entire crew down with you. Because at the end of the day, you all broke the law. Nira then pops up and brings the book, the Starfleet, the uniform code, and asks Patel to read out code 8514 of the Starfleet code. What is it? I've written it down, of course.
I can see that glint in your eye, which is like, I've got notes for this.
Code 8514. In extraordinary and extreme circumstances, if the following conditions are met: 1. Any person fleeing persecution or fearing for their life due to political or religious beliefs, cultural engagements, or biological truce may, 2. seek safety within Starfleet, and 3, upon revealing themselves to the authorities, may be granted asylum. Starfleet captains must exercise discretion and judgment when offering asylum. Status is confirmed then by a tribunal or designated authority, in which Neera, much like Pasak previously, drops a bomb and basically says, hey, she fulfilled the first point, she fulfilled the second point, all that needs to happen now is for you guys to confirm that she needs asylum, because they say she escaped persecution, she sought safety within Starfleet, and then she revealed herself to a Starfleet captain whose judgment was to grant her asylum, and that status needs to be confirmed by a tribunal, which is what she is in front of.
Yeah.
And I thought this was bloody good going for Neera to...
It's absolutely fantastic, because it points out how we fight these battles in the real world, where it's the idea of, if people use the law against you, you use the law against them. Yeah. And that's exactly what this is. He's going, hey, we need to stay cold and detached from everything because here's the law. And she's like, okay, well, if we're playing that game, here's how the law, does that.
Yeah.
And basically shuts him up, because it's, you're just going, hang on, cool. We can't say that it's like, it's like when people argue with stuff with the Bible, where they go like, oh, homosexuality is wrong. And it's like, yes, but isn't like, wearing two fabrics, or, like, yeah. Oh, well, this is also said in the statement. They're like, oh, no, that doesn't matter as much. And you're like going, sounds like you don't have a case. And that's exactly what
very
happens
selective
here.
Reading for some people, and very selective exactly ideologies, yeah.
And it hits back to what I was saying earlier about they're using the law as a shield for bias. They're not using it because of protection,
Yeah.
But it's how good this is that she uses this against him. And I do get, this actually was my least favorite bit of the episode, not because of what was happening, but not because like the message, but because as it's got a recap where she has a recap of the testimony.
Yes.
It's cutting to Una's statements earlier. So basically, as they're saying each point of that law, it cuts back to Una saying something valid about how she's that. And I don't know if this is just like Americans with really slow memories, or, not slow memories, but short memories, or if it's like, where they put advert breaks throughout everything and they're like, oh, they might have seen 50 adverts since the 5 seconds ago that we actually had that bit happen. But it kind of spoiled it a bit. I think they should have just had a clear thing. I think... also, as she's doing the recap later, you can see the Vulcans smiling, because basically, it's when it cuts back to him, he's got this bit of a sort of like a bit of a
he's got a bit of a Vulcan smirk,
and you're wondering if it's the actor didn't realize, or something. But it's that. And obviously it's the idea of going, yes, he realizes that he's been got. He realizes that he's lost this battle and the law is being used against him. But he's also a Vulcan, and it's that weird thing where it feels a bit weird for me.
Well, the last great quote...
that being my only criticism of the whole bloody episode is pretty impressive.
Well, I mean, the last great quote from this episode is, the law is not a mirror to society. A law is an ideal, a beacon to remind us of how to be our better selves. And I mean, holy crap, I mean, in an episode that is so buried in today's issues and is putting a mirror up to today's issues, and a law is not a mirror to society. No law should be a mirror to society. A law is there to like they said, to guide us, to be our better selves, to not say, oh, you can't do this because it says that. You can't do that because it's this. It's...
I have this problem because we get people where they rely on rules and they never question them, but to the point where it causes problems.
Yes.
So, for instance, in my actual day job, I lost an employee effectively because we were being really harsh on, well, I wasn't, but people were being really harsh on them about specific rules. And I was like, why can't we bend this? And it's like, oh, well, then we'd have to bend it for everyone. And you're like, no, that's not how it works. You know,
Yeah.
if they come forward with a valid case and say, hey, actually, can I get this same exception as well? Then we could be like, well, no, you don't need it. But this person does. But because it was like, oh, well, it makes our life easier if we just blanket ban and we just stop this happening. And then it meant that a good employee basically went, oh, I'll go to a place where they do allow that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we're the ones that missed out. The same way that society misses out if we go, hey, cool, this person can't have this particular job because of the color of their skin. Oh, this person can't serve in the Navy or the military at all because they're homosexual. This person can't. And you're just going, okay, maybe laws shouldn't be done like that way. They should be per circumstance. And obviously that's good for lawyers, I guess.
But they also reference that.
Oh, more cases.
But they also reference that at the end of the episode because Una is found not guilty. All charges are dropped. But they even say, I know, yeah. But the JAG even say, maybe we should look on a case-by-case basis instead of just a blanket, nope, absolutely not, because of this. Take into consideration. Yeah.
All you can ask of society is that it considers you for, like it considers your case rather than just being like, nah.
Yeah. Chris has raised a good point there. Blood donation and marrow donation is a very good example of that. Yeah, 100%. Oh, you can't do this because of this. You can't do that because of that.
It's absolutely nuts. Like, it's genuinely this idea of like, I couldn't give blood until about 3 years ago. I think it was. I think it was just before COVID where the ban got lifted, I think.
Yeah.
But it's the idea of just going, oh yeah, because you have like, gay intercourse, that means that as a gay man, you will definitely have HIV and therefore you can't give blood. And you're like, and you're like, okay, that'll be fine if it was like, oh yeah, we need to stop people with HIV donating blood, but then the blood gets tested. So all blood that gets donated from anyone ever gets tested for HIV.
Yeah.
And therefore you just go, well, why aren't I able to donate? And then if you test it and I've got HIV, then you put it in the bin. Like, and it was just such a silly law. But then they just went, oh, well, we never questioned it. We just kind of kept it around. And then you're like, but you could have all of this resource from all these people who are willing to donate, but you're telling them that they can't participate. It's crazy.
It is crazy. All that delicious Synoiz blood. I mean, all that donation, all that donation that you made.
All of my blood is just jam.
It's yes. Ooh,
delicious jam.
What flavour?
Blood.
Oh, okay. Moving on. Okay, so Una is found not guilty. She beams back to the Enterprise. The Nira leaves and she's like, I don't like Starfleet, but this is a start. And we see that she's got a lot of work ahead of her.
And this is the point. It's the point of, this is what we have with society now, where we can't, and it's from both sides. We have it where we have a lot of people getting very impatient on one side of like a particular argument, who are like, why can't we have change now? Why can't things be fixed right now? And you're like, because it takes time. Because you can't just go, as soon as you just do a blanket thing where you just go, oh, this is outlawed, people kick off. Like, and it's, and people get unruly and unjust. It has to be a slow thing. And it's the idea of you make steps in the right direction and build upon them. So, for instance, with a case like this, where they've gone, hey, we've proved that not all Illyrians are bad because we pardoned this one, then it means that other cases can come forward, use this and go, hey, hang on, I've got a good record as well. Should be fine. And then over time, all Illyrians and all, they'll take away the genetic modification laws rather than expecting suddenly you have every right that you've ever fought for in a week, which would be lovely. But sadly, it's never ever the way it's ever worked.
It will always take time. But we have got Una back in command. Pike gives her a good hug. That is it for the episode. For me, this is up there with probably one of the best episodes of Star Trek we have had, which is quite I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh,
And
what?"
ironically, the most difficult to pronounce. So it's while we're going, oh yeah, Measure of a Man, oh, in the Pale Moonlight, and then
Ad Astra per
Ad
Aspera.
Aspera something, blah, blah, blah.
Ad Astra per Aspera. To the stars through hardship. Just say that. But it is up there as one of the best episodes of Star Trek, and for me, this is Star Trek is not always pew pew space exploration, aliens, blah. It is dealing with the fundamental issues that are mirrored from today's society. This is what they did in the 60s, this is what they did in the 80s and the 90s. This, for me, is what Star Trek should be, and it's up there with Far Beyond the Stars, you know, A Measure of a Man. It blows me away that we have got modern Trek that deals with these issues. I never imagined that we would have an episode of Trek like this again. I'm going to be honest with you. And I'm really happy that we do, because this sends the right message to a younger generation that, it's not all right that this is against the law. It's not all right that someone is made to feel that they have to hide who they are because, ooh, strangers will be uncomfortable. It's not barbaric. It's archaic. It's wrong. It's barbaric.
The problem is with bias, though. With bias, there's a level of empathy with it where you can understand why people are like this. And I think rather than us referring to people as barbaric or referring to people as bigots or sort of like racist and stuff, there's got to be a level of like, why do you have this standpoint? And the same with all bullies, it's fear. It's because they are not, they are not capable of dealing with like reality or the idea. It's always from a place of self-preservation, ironically. So the fact is they're making it more difficult for someone else to exist in order to feel safer in their existence, and that's just incredibly weird human nature. And you have to have a level of empathy, I think, for bigots, because otherwise they'll always stay an enemy rather than changing. It's a difficult thing.
It's about
I tend to be more sort of like, why do you feel like this, you weirdo, rather than a kind of fuck off, kill yourself or whatever people say to bigots.
The guys at Spectrum Sanctorum have raised they're trying to get a trend going of no toxic Trek. And it's about the very ideals, the values, the principles of Star Trek. Yes, you have got these people who are intolerant against people of colour, intolerant against people with different sexualities, genders. It's about educating them through Star Trek that you have nothing to fear. They do not affect you or your life in any way. Why should you be afraid of someone? And again, it's more for people like me who have grown up with Star Trek, who lives those ideals. It's like I don't understand their prejudices. I don't understand why, but it's like, okay, maybe look at it in our viewpoint. Maybe sit back and go, what is it exactly are you afraid of that you do not like, and try and explain it, and just try and basically say this is no detriment to you.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, where it's the idea of, most of the time, because I've been through it a lot, where you basically talk to a lot of people who are hateful, and then you break it down and you kind of go, well, why do you feel like that? Why do you feel like that? And then you get to it, and eventually it just goes, look, I don't understand it, and I'm frightened of it. And it's that fear of the unknown. And that's at the core of everything. And you can dress it up however you want. You can dress it up as like, oh, well, this instance where they were bad, or, terrorists or something like that. And you're going, yeah, but you don't really believe that. Like, no one actually genuinely goes, oh yeah, all these people must be terrorists. Because as soon as you put that on the stand and go like, as an economy, how would that function?
Yeah.
How would their country work if they were all it's like, it's that weird.
It's like
But that's the
labeling.
thing. It's
It's
you
it's
you
it,
have to question it, and the best you can do is start the discussion, and
yeah,
that's exactly what this episode does.
yeah.
And it's exactly what Trek is great at. Because look, we've talked for nearly two hours about this, dissecting this episode and all of the little nuances, all of the little sort of, oh, this political reference, that's how it applies to the real world. This is Trek. This is what Trek does, where it makes us go, oh, hang on, how can we use that? Like, we talk about using law case things in law and stuff where we go, oh, this instance proves that this. We can reference Trek to make social political points. And
Yes.
there's something wonderful about that,
It's
like it's almost like what's it called? What's the episode where it has Marjak and Delard? Is it
Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra.
Yeah, I can't. I should know that.
The Picard. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know which one you mean.
where it's a
Shaka
culture
when the
that
walls
speaks-
fell.
Yeah, a culture that their entire language is based upon analogy. It's based upon referencing like previous events. We can do that with Trek because of episodes like this.
Yeah.
It's great.
Guys, that was
I
our
went off on one.
no.
Also,
People-
I just want to point out that in the final scene of this, where we basically have Nira the lawyer, who is, I don't know how you pronounce his name, but she was played by Yetide Badaki. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I'm probably wrong. Wow.
Oh,
Like
God, yes.
when she gets on the transporter, everyone applauds her for the job that she's done, and I felt like applauding the actual actress because this is a tour de force. For a one-off episode, she kills every single scene she's in. She is absolutely amazing, and like you get the like underlying emotion, and you keep forgetting that she's not this character.
Yeah.
So like when she's questioning Una, you can see that she's trying not to cry, she's trying to sort of hold back her emotions, and like that what Una's saying is affecting her, but that she's got to keep a brave face on because she's like in court. And then you realize that's all bollocks. She's an actor. She's an actor, and she's putting on this, but then she makes it, and I was literally like, okay, this is, wow, she is good.
It added to the believability of what she felt, of what her, let's be honest, her own prejudices against the Federation and Starfleet were.
Yeah.
And
in this final thing, that's what she addresses, really.
Yeah. Because let's be honest, guys, in this episode, yes, Starfleet and the Federation have their own prejudices. Nira does too. And she does not beat around the bush about it. So it's like, there is a good side and there is a bad side, but they both still have those prejudices. And it's about recognizing those prejudices and highlighting them and bringing them to forbear to address them. Because even in the end, there are still good people in Starfleet. Or for want of a better phrase, but that actor, holy shit! Like, but this is Strange New Worlds. This is being Picard season 3. The actors that they have brought in, they are just blowing it out of the water when it comes to a convincing, emotive performance about about these subjects, about these issues. I'm blown away by this episode. I really am blown away. Because I never ever thought we would have this type of episode again. Because a lot of people went, oh, well, modern Trek, it's all new Trek, it's all pew pew, lasers. And it's like, fuck no, we're going to sit you down and we're going to make you watch Jag in space. And you are going to fucking listen.
Jag in space.
You are going to fucking listen. And this is what we need. This is what Trek is. And yeah, I'm done. I'm absolutely done. I'm spent.
I absolutely loved it, and it's the idea of like, and it's also the idea we can talk all the time about how the bigoted people or the people who have problems or the people who are like racist need to change, but it's also the fact of we have like minorities that grow up fearing particular people, and it's the fact that they have to get over that eventually as well. Like, so if the world is going to change, we basically need to be like, hey, we need to work from both sides to get around A, stupid laws, B, prejudice, but also we need to be willing to forgive when progress is made in a particular direction, because it's the point of, if you've been persecuted and you harbor that hate, you harbor that resentment, that's going to cause problems. That's how all of these problems start, effectively.
Yeah.
And it's the idea that Nira is able to kind of go, look, you're all Starfleet. I hate Starfleet. But maybe it's a start. And it's that idea of just being like, that she's willing to kind of go, okay, if we keep progressing in this direction, I can bury the hatchet and maybe, accept Starfleet. And I think that was a wonderful little touch to it, because it was so good. So well written, this episode.
Guys, this has been our review of Ad Astra per Aspera, to the stars through hardship. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined in on the conversation, who is watching this video, who has liked, shared, commented, everything. We absolutely love Star Trek. We love talking about Star Trek, and if anything, this episode shows Star Trek at its very best. So I would like to thank the lovely science officer Synoiz for joining me tonight for this episode. It has been a pleasure. The U.S.S. Adequate will be docking in Newcastle upon Tyne this Sunday. What day is it on Sunday? June the 25th.
It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. No, what date? God. The Adequate will be docking in Newcastle upon Tyne on June the 25th for SunnyCon Anime Expo at St James's Park. If no one knows what that is the home stadium of Newcastle United Football Club. That one where they play football.
Guys, if you want to continue this discussion in the comments, please feel free, okay? I think this could be a really interesting thing. If you want to post a comment on this video about how the episode or even this discussion made you feel, and any points that you think are valid, let's do that and let's continue the discussion, because I think I think there's a lot of stuff that still needs to be discussed. And the whole point of this episode is that if you bring things into the open, you don't just hide them with a fucking plea deal. Yeah. If you bring it into the open, then good things happen from discussion. Yeah. I need to point out that I'm not here next week, am I?
No, the science officer has got shore leave.
Disappoint anyone.
Science officer has got shore leave next week. The bastard has decided to go to Riser for the week. So
me and the drag show crew, the lovely collective that we do. We basically have a drag collective where we're just good friends who do different styles of drag. We're going to be performing at Holm Festival that is near County Durham. It's a wonderful little wellness and like, it's got yoga, it's got drag, it's got DJs, it's got like it's really cool. But yeah, we're going to be performing on the Friday night, and I didn't realize that. I thought we were Saturday night, so I thought I could like go down on like, Friday after we did this, or Saturday morning. And yeah, they're like, no, you need to be on stage at like 9. And I'm like, oh, okay. So sadly, and because of how Strange New Worlds only comes out on
Thursdays,
a Friday morning, we basically can't even pre-record it. So I'm afraid, but I'm so glad that this episode was this week. I would have been gutted if an episode this good was when I'm not here to discuss it.
Oh, we would have moved heaven and earth to...
Hopefully it's a shit one next week and you're just like, nah, whatever.
Well, next week, guys, like I said, Synoiz will be on shore leave, conducting covert ops. Dressed like...
I just explained what it is, Goodwill. Don't try dressing it up with fucking fluff.
I'm making it canon. Another crew member.
There's got to be a drag planet. There's got to be some kind of...
Oh my god. What would you call it?
Imagine a race of drag queens.
Imagine a race of
snatches.
Where their
culture is to be fabulous.
A race of snatches.
A race of snatches.
Snatch Prime. Sounds like a subscription service. Another member of the Adequate crew will be joining us next week. All will be revealed next Friday at 7:30 p.m. live.
I don't even know who it is. So it's going to be a surprise to everyone.
It's going to be...
I'll be on Saturday being really, really hungover, just being like...
All I will say is it is another crew member of the Starship Adequate. Guys, continue this discussion down in the comments. If you want to continue this discussion in our Discord, well, you're in luck, because the Nerdy Up North Discord is in the description below, where we've got our very own Trekkin channel. So if you want to discuss all things Star Trek, hop on the Discord. It's free. Say hello. They're an absolutely fabulous bunch in there. Loads and loads of dedicated cult members. Just don't drink the Kool-Aid. We have also got Instagram, we've got Twitter, we have got Twitch, we've got the Tiki and the Toki, we've got the Velvet Snatch on YouTube. Synoiz also does a little bit of Twitch. Are you twitching tonight?
I don't want it to become a thing. I am streaming tonight, but I've done the thing again where I haven't eaten. So I'm like, I can't order pizza 3 weeks in a row. That's like 65 quid worth of Domino's.
Order Greg's.
They're shut.
So get them to reopen. Sausage
Do you know who I am? I'm the Velvet Snatch.
Yes.
Hello?
Greg's
Hello?
sponsorship. Nerdy Up North sponsorship. Greg's. So help me. I will get that.
Pasty at my window. Yeah. I am really tempted to get pizza again.
Do it.
Because I know that if I'm going to SunnyCon tomorrow, also I'll be at SunnyCon on the Saturday as well as the Sunday. So if you're at there Saturday, come up. We'll have a chat.
Come up. The rest of the Nerdy Up North crew will be there on Sunday.
Pizza again.
The rest of the Nerdy Up North crew will be there on Sunday. We are panels, so is Synoiz. You could also follow the Girl podcast on there, the Velvet Snatch's official. Oh, daddy. The Velvet Snatch's official website. I am on Twitter, if you don't already know. I am the person that won't shut up about Star Trek on Twitter. That is me. Has
Mark blocked you yet?
No.
That's it. Keep trying.
I have got a care package for him. I have actually curated a care package.
I'm fully expecting a full-on misery moment with you and Mark.
There is a T-shirt. There is Greg's memorabilia. There is regional memorabilia. So help me God, it's going to be the best goddamn care package he's ever seen. Mark, if you are listening back to this, run. If you enjoy,
that's right, Christopher. Care package.
Yes. There's a hole in the bottom. If you enjoy 9.5 foot tall people that play guitar, we've also got Adam's music links in the description below. He is
so spicy.
He's fantastic with the fingers, guys.
His fingering is second to none.
The harmonics that he pulls off is unbelievable. Honestly, my God, the scales that he can do.
Oh my word.
Oh dear, daddy. Yes. Anyway, so there is no. There is no.
He's got you on the turn, Goodwill. Adam's got you on the turn.
As soon as he
first, it's Anson Mount.
Anson Mount me. As soon as look, Adam, if you do a cover of Faith of the Heart, I will find where you live.
Oh no!
I will get a step ladder. I will get a step ladder and a Yellow Pages. But
it's been a long road.
It will be a long road. But
getting from there to here.
Adam, coming in your ears since 2022. Oh my!
Coming in your ears.
Coming in your ears, and many other places. So this Sunday there won't be a podcast on Sunday night because there will be a recorded.
Because we're busy.
We're busy.
We're fucking
there will be a recorded podcast from SunnyCon, which we will put up on the U and the Tube. I will be there doing live Facebook Lives and all this jazz. And then there will be Monsters Up North on Monday when they are discussing the Phantom of the Opera on Monday at YouTube.
And amazingly, we actually all watched the same movie this time.
Oh, really?
Because last time we were watching, when we had the first discussion about Phantom of the Opera, when it was all together, we kind of got like halfway through the discussion, and then we were like, "Wait, which one were you watching?" What? Oh, and it was, and this one we've all watched the 1925 one, which is
good,
so good.
Yes,
like it's on YouTube. So what we do is join us on Monday when we'll be it's pre-recorded. Sorry to spoil the magic, but basically join us on Monday for Monsters Up North talking about Phantom of the Opera. But before then, on YouTube, search for 1925 Phantom of the Opera. You can watch it for free because it's all copyright free. And it's a silent film, but put it on. Put the Cheeky Girls on as the music or something. Put like I don't know.
No one outside of the UK will recognise what the Cheeky Girls are. Put Rick Astley on. You'll know.
Tell Sunderland Pride that.
Oh!
Oh, it's a sick burn, but
God.
they
Hang on,
burned
hang on.
themselves.
I'm detecting sass. Right, guys.
Don't get me started on fucking Sunderland Pride.
Oh, anyway, guys, we are going to wrap it up there. I will be back next week at 7:30 p.m. live on the U and the Tube. Graeme will be back in 2 weeks' time. Until then, guys, we will love you and leave you. We love each and every one of you. Live long and prosper. Stay safe. Look after each other. Farewell. Tatty bye.
Miles? Daddy.